responded to that email, Kyle. I did. When somebody wrote in the other day and said, do you and Kyle prefer the company of men? Real simple response. I said, doesn't everybody? DarbyCast, Wildcard Friday. Chicks hate each other. That's what I'm saying, Kyle. It's very rare to find true female friendship where there's not a lot of backstabbing going on. Speaking of backstabbing, true crime murder mysteries. Boy, did that just soak a bunch of chicks' panties listening to this. Say, oh, goodness gracious. Don't get me started on serial killers, those twisted, evil, sexy individuals. That's a trend, right, Kyle? In American media, especially in the world of podcasts. I think you get some chicks who fix themselves some pretty sturdy cosmos, and then they just talk about white women being disemboweled. And then it's just white chicks listening to it, right? I've never heard of an Asian chick saying, oh, that serial killer was so hot. My goodness. You just don't hear that. What is that about? Does that have something to do with the role of the father, Kyle? I'm no psychologist, but I like to put on a hat of armchair quarterbacking some psychological language and dishing out insight. And I'm not going to lie, I do it pretty well on the DarbyCast on a Wildcard Friday, such as this. Chicks without proper dads fantasize about being murdered. What is that about? I don't have the answer to that one. The only one who could answer that is probably a total creep, a psychologist, or somebody who's super smart. And I don't know if those categories are mutually exclusive. Super smart creep. They're just yeah, let me tell you about true crime and why it turns the majority of white women's undercarriages into the theme park raging waters. That chick got iced on the news. And a lot of chicks who can get sunburned that I know have showed concern there. Being like, oh my gosh, the woods are so dangerous. And it's like, wow, Katrina, very spot on. You nailed it. None of them seem to wonder why the world of news just stopped all of a sudden and zeroed in on this one chick. That never crossed their minds. It just entered into their consciousness and they're like, I would have considered van life, but now I don't know anymore. And it's like, wow, you have such a strong brain with insight. It really came out of nowhere, though, didn't it? This chick, Gabby, the other day, great gal I know, she said, did you hear about that girl? I said, yeah, in passing, but I don't really care at all. And she was so taken aback by that. She was like, but don't you think it's sad? And I'm like, yeah, probably. But I'm like, I didn't know her. What are we doing here? And she was upset, the gal who told me about this, for upwards of an hour until I finally just had to go completely overboard into absurdism to prove a point to her and say, hey, babe, you know what I like? It's just, what do you like? And I said, chicks getting abducted and then murdered in the woods. Love it. Just can't get enough of it. And then we both had a laugh. And that's a functional relationship in the year of our Lord, 2021. What is it about these true crime stories that's so appealing, specifically to white chicks? The story is always the same. Sally Turner was a normal girl from Anytown, USA. She lived at 123 Main Street and liked doing her homework. And then that's like the setup for it. There's like 500 Netflix specials like this, or so I've heard. Who has a Netflix account these days? You're going to pay for the propaganda? Good job. Enlightened thinker. I like the shows. There aren't any shows anymore. It's all just cleverly crafted ideological Trojan horses getting wheeled into your noggin. We know this. Most people know this, except for the people who don't. And boy, do they like Netflix. Have you heard about the special on Hulu about the fucking killer? It's like, oh, okay. You're totally ready to be a mom. I can sense it. So surprising that nobody's put a ring on you yet? They must be just beating a path to your door, huh, Sabrina? And some of the gals with really low self-esteem listening to the DarbyCast right now are saying, like, you're not being nice to women, and that's upsetting to me. And it's like, don't identify with the entire group then. Why don't you just like kind of find your people and don't get offended by any time that somebody criticizes a chick for acting like a dummy. Listen, guys and gals both have the capacity to act like complete dumbasses. And if you act like every time that a gal gets called out for acting in a way that is special needs adjacent, you're going to get offended a lot. But let's go back to true crime. Why don't we? Yet again, Kyle, your dog is munching a bone. I can hear it through the wall. And I will tell you again, if these chomping noises show up on this podcast, today I'm actually going to allow it because it kind of adds to the spooky factor. It's like true crime. Should I just start writing true crime stories, Kyle? Novels? I feel like it would be really easy. You just have that industry standard setup. Jill Langley liked to go to the library and play the tuba. And she was also hot and wore sweaters and helped her mom, but her dad was a drunk. And that's when Ralph showed up. Da, 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 da. Ralph seemed charming and had a great jawline, and chicks are just like, oh, fuck, where's Ralph been? What is it about that? Maybe I just will never get it. Or maybe I already get it. Does that put me in the halfway sharp guy, but also maybe a creep? Do I have that in me, Kyle? Kyle, look at me and just say no, you idiot. Don't let me spiral like that. Very inappropriate on your part. Let's clarify what kind of gals of mixed European descent living in America who enjoy true crime. What else do they have in common? They haven't picked up a book in years. That is almost certain. And or they haven't been laid in a while, and or their dad is not in the picture. So what does a serial killer provide for that gal from a psycho-emotional standpoint? That's right. Attention and validation. Being like, listen, you're hot enough to abduct. Abby, I want you. I could have abducted any gal in that Mulligan's Family Fun Center parking lot, but it was something about you. You're special. Is that what it is? Is there a deep need that's being overlooked right now in mixed European descent gals who can get sunburned in the United States? Are they missing attention? Are they missing love? Is it easy to blame on their dads, probably named Keith? Think about how rough gals have it whose dads are named Keith. And just sit with that for a second. Low self-esteem yields sexual fantasies that involve a slicing of the jugular. Is that what it is? Some of these gals, your heart goes out to them, right? Mine does. Some gal who's just feeling so lonely and starved for attention that she's like, honestly, I would be okay with a serial killer throwing me in a van. That'd be one person who noticed me, and I wouldn't mind that. How small are people feeling in today's crazy world? How do you make somebody feel big? How do you make a gal feel huge, loved, valued? If your name's Keith, you don't have kids. Because chances are you might have a daughter and you're going to blow it. So get a vasectomy, Keith. And if times are tough economically, just smash your sack with a wooden meat tenderizer until the job's done. Do one thing right in your life, Keith. One time. Some of you right now are saying to yourselves, this is really something. And that's a tough argument to refute. But the formula's clear. I got to go back to this message. Sweet girl who may or may not ride horses, does community service, has a big heart, and then out of nowhere, Ted shows up. Have I already given the outline for a couple novels on this podcast? I think I kind of have, right? Delilah was the captain of the pep squad. She was going to go to ASU because her grades weren't that great. But she was going to study sociology and use it to help puppies. At least that's what she told her peers. And they were of a similar academic ilk. So they were spellbound by the revelation of her grand plan. I'm going to study soc. Save more puppies than you could ever imagine. But then Damien showed up. And then you just kind of go from there, right? I bet you if you shared this with somebody and you shared the correct sound clip, like just one of my made up true crime lead-ins, we'd get a lot of listeners showing up. It's like the number one genre of podcast, just true crime. Two clams just getting together, having a couple of appleteenies, being like, I've got a juicy one for you today, Katrina. Then the other chick's like, don't even tease me, Sabrina. I hate my dad. How do you raise the self-esteem of an entire generation of women raised on a barrage of advertisements, flogging them every day, telling them that they would be okay if they just bought the new cream from L'Oreal Paris? How do you do that? It's a challenge, right? Maybe the Unabomber was right. Boy, did I just end up on like 70 lists for saying that. He did not execute a proper game plan and publishing route. What was that about? His targets were so lame. And it's like, dude, step up. And like, just go to Simon and Schuster and be like, I got some shit to say. Can you publish this? They wouldn't have published it. Is that what got him so riled up? And I don't think the Unabomber makes chicks horny. He didn't have that debonair, dapper dandy style appeal. He wasn't ripped or dangerous looking. That's what the chicks are into. Guy's named Blaine, 5 o'clock shadow, smoking a cigarette outside of a driving range. Boy, did that just trash a lot of panties with moisture. Blaine will chop your head off with a meat cleaver and then play hacky sack with it. For the really rough chicks who haven't spoken with their dads in quite some time, they just got pretty excited. They're like, wow, you just described my perfect boyfriend. So much dysfunction in this world of ours between men and women. And gals will say, hey, you're unfairly harping on gals. And it's like, raise your self-esteem. Go do a cartwheel That always makes me feel pretty good. I haven't needed to hit that plan D, break the glass, emergency style coping mechanism really ever, but that's in my arsenal. If I'm ever feeling really low, you better believe I'm finding some grass and testing out a cartwheel, maybe a somersault, maybe roll down a hill, Hotdog style. It's like nobody ever told chicks that they could just do that and they'd feel amazing. Sure, none of those things can repair a relationship with your father, and without doing something like that, you can continue to be enticed by these crime dramas. Also, continuing to use Instagram and other social media whodunits, it's going to take its toll, chip away at the self-esteem. You're not a power woman if you don't drive a Jaguar while eating a Krispy Kreme donut. Did that make you uneasy if you're a lady listener? Did you just kind of think to yourself, like, that would put me in a fairly strong social position if I were driving a Jag and eating a Krispy Kreme? There's a lot going on with you if you said that's pretty appealing sounding. Fathers, hug your daughters. If your name is Keith, maybe you just go rest your beanbag on some railroad tracks. Just say, do this thing right. But another big mystery is like, why is it white chicks who are into the murder so much? Do white chicks have more daddy issues than other groups? Black chicks, Asian chicks, Latinx. Are they still saying that? Are idiots on television still being like, well, the Latinx community? Nobody in the Latino community, no matter where they're from in Latin America, is going around being like, we are a solid block of Latinx. That's us. I'm from Panama. You're from Uruguay, but let's drop the facade. We're Latinx. Who knows? Maybe that's what they're saying down there. Somos Latinx. Aquí estamos en los Estados Unidos, al border, con los Haitians, rompando los leyes. You know what I just said? Some of you do. It wasn't perfect Spanish, but it was okay. Should I translate, Kyle? We are Latinx, and we are at the United States border with Haitians breaking laws. Whew, that crisis rages on. Isn't this what the Second Amendment's for? That just put me on another score of lists. Why have a bunch of cool bros from the South not taken their F-150s down to the border and been like, we got this? The federal government doesn't care about enforcing laws. They don't. Why would they? Anything that enhances the flow of global capital and cheap credit to people who don't understand credit is A-OK by AOC. You remember when AOC survived the deadly insurrection where boomers wandered around the Capitol waving American flags? You know what her testimony was? She's like, I was afraid for my life. I was afraid I was going to get pounded. So expertly. It's like, AOC, I didn't know that you had a sloppy relationship with your dad. What's that about? Gals who seek those power positions as well, keep an eye on them. Very inappropriate. I know a lot of great gals, intelligent, caring, responsible, trustworthy. The list goes on of positive adjectives I can use to describe the ladies in my life. I can't see any of them wanting to run for Congress. That's a hole in your soul that only a murderer can fill. AOC with the big reveal, just saying, I thought I was going to get bound and gagged and massaged lovingly by those brutes wearing those MAGA hats. Oh, fuck. Is that what her behind the scenes looks like? Perhaps. And she's not even your industry standard white chick. She's a little off industry standard if we're being totally honest with each other. Kyle. AOC's like Puerto Rican? I don't know what her background is, to be honest with you. Should I say she's Latinx? And that's it? Sure, she'd be fine with that. But let's just wrap up this DarbyCast with foster the self-esteem of high-quality ladies in your life with honest compliments and saying, hey, I noticed your Google search history. You didn't clear it. You were looking up pictures of Ted Bundy and you searched the term Ted Bundy's jawline in quotes. Let's go do some cartwheels. Let's roll sideways down a hill, hot dog style. We can do this. I believe in you. How about that? How about that simple phrase? I believe in you. And they just don't want to watch murder stuff anymore. They're like, that's not for me. I'm getting positive attention and it actually feels pretty good. But those gals that have busted relationships with their fathers, many of whom are named Keith, they never got positive attention as children. And so they have a hard time tolerating what it feels like to be looked in the eye and told, I would somersault with you for over an hour. They don't even know that that's out there, that that's possible. And it is. That's what I'm saying. As a DarbyCast doctor, you know that. Find some chick. If you're in a relationship, nothing wows a chick like grabbing her hand and saying, come with me on an adventure. Then you go out to a grassy area, you roll around. It's going to be more difficult if you're single to grab some chick's hand and be like, let's go on an adventure. Or maybe it's not going to be difficult because maybe they're going to be like, oh, thank God, my serial killer finally presented himself. Who knows? But disappoint them and be like, I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to tell you that your dad's a piece of garbage. And whatever gal, you got about an 80% chance of that line landing. At least that's my perception. Just go up to a chick and be like, I know your dad treated you like shit. And I want to help you, provided that your psychological issues aren't so extreme that it's going to ruin my life. That's a pickup line and a half. This is key insight. This is dating. This is truth. This is armchair psychology. This is love. That's what that is. And that's DarbyCast, Wildcard Friday for you. We'll wrap up on that. Go out there and do what's right.